All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and practice exams. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A behavior analyst is set to discharge one of their clients. During the last meeting, the analyst asked the parents if they would write a testimonial about their services. The parents agree, and the analyst uses the testimonial in their advertising. A couple of months later, the behavior analyst starts to work with the younger sibling from the same family. Is this scenario acceptable? All right, so this is an ethics question. This is a scenario question specifically about testimonials. And in our ethics code, there are specific items that address testimonials and advertising. You might have noticed in the newer ethics guide or the ethics list that there's more emphasis on certain business aspects of our field because it's just become more popular. It's growing. There are more businesses out there. And so they're directly addressing some of these business ideas. Now, with everything, even if you don't plan to open your own business, you still must be aware of these ethical scenarios because if you're going to work somewhere, remember, it's our job as analysts to maintain ethics no matter what. So if we have this analyst who is going to discharge a client and the analyst asks the parents to write a testimonial, which the parents agree to, and the analyst uses the testimonial in the advertising, is that in itself okay? It is, because the client is no longer a client. You are allowed to solicit and get testimonials and use from past clients. Now, there are certain stipulations on what must be included, but that is totally acceptable. Now, what happens after that? Well, after that, the behavior analyst starts to work with the younger sibling from the same family. So we don't have the same client necessarily, but we do have the same stakeholders who gave the testimonial. So now that analyst is working with the stakeholders who provided the testimonial. Is that acceptable? Well, no, we can't use testimonials from current clients and stakeholders. So what must the behavior analyst do, or is the scenario acceptable? A, no, you cannot solicit testimonials from current or former clients. Well, you can solicit from former clients, so A is incorrect. B, no, once a testimonial is given, the analyst cannot work with that family again. They can, they just have to stop using that testimonial. That's what the analyst needs to do next. C, yes, but only if the analyst removes the testimonial now that they are working with the family again. Good. C is what we're looking for. C is what we predicted. D, yes, but only if the testimonial has a disclaimer added to it. We should use disclaimers as needed and noted by the ethical code. However, since they are now once again a client, a testimonial is no longer okay to use. So since the behavior analyst is working with them, the analyst must remove that testimonial as long as they're working with that family. When the family leaves, then of course they can go ahead and use those testimonials once again if given permission. Consider each of the following scenarios. Which scenario does not reasonably justify the consideration to discontinue services? All right, we're talking about discontinuing services, and there are specific reasons why we would consider discontinuing services. This question is saying what scenario doesn't justify that. The three of these are justifiable. One is not. Let's look for the ones that are. A, Sally Mae has mastered several goals after 2 years of treatment, and her behavior is well under control. Her parents aren't sure if there's anything else that needs immediate attention. What idea does A represent in regard to discontinuing services? Well, once you've mastered all your goals, once there isn't really anything left to work on, we need to start transferring clients out. We can't just make up things to work on. We have to address socially valid, meaningful goals. In this case, she's already mastered these goals, behavior's under control, nothing else to work on. This is very justifiable to consider discontinuing services. B, Esmeralda has tried to schedule a parent training every week for 4 months with the family, but they either cancel or refuse to pick a date. Now, in the new ethics code, the board did us a favor because we are now allowed to hold parents more and stakeholders more accountable. If they're not agreeing to work with us or collaborate on interventions, then we can consider discontinuing services. If Esmeralda hasn't been able to train for 4 months, that's a major problem. Esmeralda, at this point, it's been long enough and they've not made any effort. And so it is justifiable to consider discontinuing services. What about C? 2 weeks into service, Josh is struggling to figure out what the best intervention would be for his client's hair pulling behavior. Is C enough to consider discontinuing services? Well, no. 1, it hasn't been long enough. It's only been 2 weeks. 2, trying to figure out the best intervention is just the cost of doing business. It's part of what we do every day. So just because Josh hasn't figured it out yet doesn't mean he won't ever figure it out. He needs to try something first, right? And try other things first before we even get to the idea of our service is not working. So C is just not strong enough. Now, what about D? You are informed that your client just lost their insurance coverage after their dad switched jobs. They won't have insurance for at least 1 month. What is D representing? D is representing a loss in funding. When funding goes away, we are not obligated to provide services for free. That is the truth and the reality of a growing field. We do not have to give services for free. So, A, goals are mastered, might not be anything meaningful left. A is okay. B, parents not cooperating or collaborating, could be okay. D, no funding, could be okay. What is not justifiable is after 2 weeks, going and discontinuing services because you haven't figured out what the best intervention would be yet. C is not enough to consider discontinuing services. 2 behavior analysts are discussing potential reinforcement schedules for a client. One analyst suggests a FR2 schedule to get started, while the other analyst suggests a VI3 schedule to get started. They decide to use both schedules at the same time. What would matching law say about this strategy? All right, let's think about matching law. What is matching law? Well, matching law has to do with the scenarios where there are multiple reinforcement schedules in play. And what does matching law say about that? Well, let's take this scenario for example. We have an FR2 schedule and a VI3. If we're using both schedules at the same time, what's going to happen with the client or with the behavior? A, you should never have 2 basic schedules occurring at the same time. Well, that's of course not true. We have concurrent schedules. There's nothing wrong with 2 basic schedules occurring at the same time. B, the client is either going to respond to the FR2 schedule or the VI3 schedule, but not both. Again, not true. There's an opportunity for reinforcement in both schedules. C, the client's responses are going to correspond to the proportion of reinforcement received from each schedule. Yes. In other words, the client can respond twice to the FR2, get reinforcement, and then they can wait for this variable interval schedule, respond there, get reinforcement. And so they're going to start responding in proportion to how much reinforcement they're receiving. That's what matching law says. D, reinforcement received will end up equal. Well, highly unlikely. Yes, a VI3 is an average, but that's going to be a pretty big average. And so let's say they engage in 6 responses. They're going to get 3 types of, or 3 instances of reinforcement, so to speak, for FR2, right? Because 2, 2, and 2, 6 responses, we're going to get 3 instances of reinforcement. With the VI3, that's going to be all time-based. So the reinforcement isn't really going to end up equal. What's going to happen, and what matching law says, is the proportion of reinforcement received from each schedule is going to dictate the responses. And so the client's likely going to respond more to the FR2. They're going to get more reinforcement. And then they're going to go to the VI3 occasionally to get that reinforcement. That's what matching law is all about. After conducting a full functional analysis, Rochelle concludes that the function of her client sniffing pumpkin pie scented candles is automatic. Rochelle wants to put this behavior on extinction. Which of the following approaches would be most appropriate to begin with? Okay, so the question is basically asking, how do we put automatic behavior on extinction? And automatic behavior is difficult to change because that reinforcement is coming from the person themselves, right? So it's not socially mediated. So what must you do? Well, you can consider automatic. We have to look at it as a form of something feeling good, more sensory based. We've got to work with that feeling almost, right? And that's not necessarily behavior analysts say that way, but we have to consider what automatic is. In this case, Rochelle concludes that her client is sniffing pumpkin pie scented candles because it's automatic reinforcement. The behavior is functioning for automatic purposes. And what's reinforcing it? Well, the pumpkin pie scented smell, right? They're sniffing it over and over again. And so to put this behavior on extinction, what do we likely need to do? A, remove all candles from the client's environment following the start of extinction. What is the rule with extinction? You have to let the learner have a chance to engage in the response, because if they don't, we can't put it on extinction. Remember, extinction is when we withhold reinforcement following a response. If they can't engage in the response, we can never withhold reinforcement. B, provide access to candles but prevent the client from sniffing the candle. Again, response blocking, not extinction. Don't get that mixed up. C, purchase candles with no smell and replace the pumpkin pie candles. Okay, that's definitely a possibility. What would happen when the client sniffs the candles? They're not getting that reinforcement. So that's definitely a possibility. D, teach the client to request for pumpkin pie. How does that address sniffing the pumpkin pie scented candles? It doesn't really, right? D may be a good replacement behavior, but it doesn't really address extinction and what we're trying to do here. To put the behavior on extinction, you've got to withhold reinforcement. And based on this information, withholding reinforcement while also providing the learner with an opportunity to engage in the response would be removing that smell. So buy candles with no smell and replace those pumpkin pie candles. So when the learner smells or sniffs, they don't get that pumpkin pie scent. Tyson's mom packs carrots in his lunch. Before Tyson gets out of the car at school, his mom tells him she expects him to eat all of his carrots today. What measurement procedure makes the most sense for the mom to use to see if the carrots are gone? Very easy question. Remember, sometimes questions are just easy. So looking for the measurement procedure for this mom that makes the most sense to see if the carrots are gone. He gives the carrots in his lunch. He goes to school. Mom says, eat all your carrots. We're just measuring, are the carrots gone? A, she will need to sit with Tyson at lunch. Well, does that make the most sense to see if the carrots are gone when you have other means? Well, no, there are better ways to do it. There are simpler, more parsimonious ways. B, she can ask the teacher to record Tyson at lunch. What else can she do? Well, C, she can check Tyson's lunchbox after school. She can simply use permanent product. Now, there's a million ways Tyson could get rid of the carrots without eating them, but we're measuring, are the carrots gone, not if he ate them. So simply seeing if the carrots are gone, the most parsimonious measurement would be permanent product. This continuous measurement doesn't make a lot of sense here because that would involve a direct observation, and that's not going to really give off are the carrots gone or not. So the most parsimonious way, or the most parsimonious, simplest measurement, see if the carrots are gone, the wording's important, is to check Tyson's lunchbox after school. Which of the following strategies would not be effective at reducing a child's aggression? All right, try another easy question, but read it carefully, right? Strategies that is not effective at reduction. Basically what the question is asking. So A, negative punishment. Well, sure, punishment has a chance to be effective at reducing a child's aggression. That's what punishment is, it reduces behavior. B, negative reinforcement. Well, of course not. Why? Because by definition, reinforcement increases. Reinforcement is never going to be effective at reducing anything, because by definition, it would no longer be reinforcement. C, extinction. Sure, extinction works to reduce behavior. And then D, cannot determine. Don't get tripped up and think, well, maybe negative reinforcement could reduce. No, it just can never happen. By definition, reinforcement increases while punishment and extinction decrease. All right, thanks for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. As always, let us know when you pass, subscribe, work hard, study hard, spread the word. See you soon.